faith in the objectivity of these magazines, and even magazines like Die Hard Game Fan. I mean, they were started as basically shopper periodicals for scam stores like this. It would be like this store putting out a magazine in which they reviewed all the new games that they had just gotten in. And the problem with that is there was a game called Earthworm Jim. Okay, I don't know how many of you remember it, but it got tremendous hype for it. It was a David Perry game. It was Playmates was a big entrance into gaming, and everybody thought this game was going to be fantastic. And the Die Hard Game Fan store ordered a zillion copies of it. And then, of course, it wasn't so fantastic. It looked really nice, but it had all kind of play mechanic flaws in it. But they were stuck, and so Die Hard Game Fan named it the best game of the decade. Okay, so they're completely throwing your integrity out into the streets to let it be eaten by dogs. And that's, this is not an industry that gets a lot of respect. Then there's the fact that game reviewers and game journalists are competing with people from Rolling Stone, from Entertainment Weekly, from Time Magazine. They're playing with the big boys. These companies have hired people who can get from the New York Times. How much access do you suppose they can get? All of it, and even the top game magazine, it's very hard for them to compete with the New York Times or with Entertainment Weekly if there's coverage. There's a possibility of the game company getting coverage. So it's very tough, and it's tough to hold anybody accountable because again, so many of the sites, so many of the writers have no training. They're just fans, and they're just writing, their fan opinions. And I think it's incumbent upon the readers to realize that that's what they're getting.
When do you think, or I guess what would have to happen for the video game industry to get treated with the same level of legitimacy from like the mainstream media? Like until you start seeing game reviews in like People magazine or something.
We're pretty close. I mean, money impresses people more than anything else, right? And all you read is stories about how the game industry is bulletproof, they're recession-proof, nothing can happen to them, and they made more money than the movie business, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, the truth is that maybe the top 3 or 4 companies in the game business are making tons of money. EA is making tons of money. Activision is making tons of money. But it seems every day that some small design group is closing its doors. Often companies that have been around developing games for decades are suddenly Stormfront Studios shut down not long ago. That's a company that's been around since the 80s. And, so all the developers are people who make the game. So if they're shutting down, the industry isn't as healthy as it appears to be. And the fact is that video games are just so different from every other form of media. Every other form of media is linear. It's a story. I mean, it's the same reason it takes so long to review a video game as opposed to a movie. A movie, I can go in and sit there for 2 hours. I've seen the movie. I've seen everything there is to see about the movie. I know everything I need to know about the movie. Books. You read the book, beginning to end. It's over. You like the story. You didn't like the story. It's that linear tradition is so strong that video games will not be treated with that same level of respect until I would say your generation basically are the people who are making those judgments and making those evaluations, and you've grown up with respect for this medium. To you, video games are just as valid a form of entertainment as movies or television or books. So or CDs, whatever. And it's just something. I mean, the movie business was around a long time before it began to gain respect as an art form. I mean, seriously, it wasn't until like the 50s and 60s when foreign films began to develop a reputation to be art films, and that film could be art, and that movies could be art. So, video games have only been around less than 40 years. So, we're doing okay. I think we've made more progress than almost any other medium has made in that amount of time.
On forums and myself, a lot of people feel like there's a lack of originality in the industry. Is it nostalgia that's blinding us, or is it just that?
No, it's a lack of originality. It's, you know, I mean, look at the bestseller lists. Every game has a number in it. Okay, you know, you don't get I mean, imagine if the movie industry was nothing but Friday the 13th, Part 24. You know, Scarface, Part 16. You know, it's, you know, the problem is that it's gotten to the point where it takes so long and costs so much money to make games that they have to squeeze every penny that they possibly can out of them. And, you know, originality will always suffer because in tight times, and these are tight times, no matter how well you feel the game industry is doing, these are tight times for everybody. We just spent this weekend looking at a possible bailout that your grandchildren could be still paying for. So, you know, times are tight. People are less likely to want to take chances, less likely to want to do stuff that's offbeat, that's original, that doesn't fit into a pigeonhole. We can't say this is a first-person shooter or this is a God game or whatever. You know, if it's an actually original game, it's got a problem. Which is again why I like so many independent games. I like so many games that are being turned out by small studios. How many people you got in your group?
Total on the project, maybe about 15.
Okay, that's about average for an independent project. And you know, they turned out a very nice looking game. It's nothing new, it's nothing original, but you know, the fact that off-the-shelf tools are now available that allow just about anybody with any kind of knowledge at all about game design and programming to make their own games and to try their own ideas. And you know, that's how we're going to see change. I mean, the movie industry didn't change until movies like Pulp Fiction started coming out, and people realized I can max out a credit card and make a movie. You know, well, you can do the same thing with games, and you know, I think we'll see people starting out with tried and true themes, maybe. But if you're going to see experimentation and something wild and new come along, it's either going to come along. It's either going to be something like Spores, you know, the once every 3-year project that shows that the game industry can do something different, or it's going to be another Tony Hawk game. Because you know, I can sell so many copies of Tony Hawk because apparently, no matter how many Tony Hawk games you have, it is not enough. Anybody else? Yes.
How do you feel about like microtransactions for like games that come out where you gotta pay X amount of points to get a new level, a new weapon for a game?
I think that's great. I mean, you know, I think that appeals to almost every game. I mean, let's face it, you know, hidden locked characters and secrets and Easter eggs have been, you know, such a big part of this industry for so long. And, you know, the idea that, you know, I can play and I can build, I mean, obviously it's a great economic paradigm. It's certainly making money for companies that want to make money before. And, you know, it's a great way to show that I'm playing, I'm spending all these hours, and when my parents come in and say, you know, you've been sitting and playing this game for 2 weeks, what have you gotten out of it? You can say, I now have a purple blaster gun. I can change my skin-tight pantsuit and purple if I want to. And, you know, hey, you got to they're throwing you crumbs. But, hey, you know, crumbs are better than nothing. Anybody else?
Go. I'm going to speak to something that you talked about earlier, where game designers don't have, you know, their name doesn't necessarily sell a game like it did, you know, in the 80s, the years of Activision, where the Kitchen Brothers or, you know, David Crane could have their name on the cartridge. Was there ever a point in the industry from then till now that game designers talked about having a guild or a union where they could kind of guarantee something like that, and that they would be able to protect their creative endeavors? Or is it always, you think it from this point on, with companies like EA, it's always going to kind of be a Disney thing where